Yes, it is. Okay. All right. Well, welcome to September 17th Planning Commission meeting. All members are present. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance by standing. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Very good. Per the city's meeting rules and procedures, the comments are generally limited to 5 minutes or less time if a large number of speakers is anticipated, or if approved by the chair. Speakers desiring answers to questions should direct them to the Planning Commission, and if relevant, the commission may direct them to staff. Speakers can also follow up directly with staff during regular city business hours. Please file a speaker's card with the administrative secretary on the form provided at the back of the chambers. During this portion of the meeting, those in the council chambers are permitted to speak on items that are not on the agenda. The comments for scheduled agenda items should wait until that time. Zoom participation during the general public comment period will not be accepted. Please note that the commission's actions are final unless an appeal is filed with the city clerk within 10 business days.
At this time, Chair Roberts, we have no speaker cards for those in person for general public comment.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the consent calendar. Our next item is the consent calendar. There is one set of minutes for the regular meeting for September 3rd, 2024. Is there any discussion or do I have a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, at this time, we're going to go into our business items. The application for design review approval for 2 single-family homes, including one exception from the interim objective design standards. And staff report will be given by Jennifer Hagan. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Please share my screen. Tonight, we're here to consider applications for design review approval for 2 new single-family homes on Caleb Place. On April 2nd of this year, the Planning Commission considered applications for design review with corresponding variances for 2 single-family homes on each of these lots. The variances at that time were requested to deviate from various development standards, including reduced front, side, and rear yard setbacks. After reviewing the application and hearing public comments, the Planning Commission directed staff to return with resolutions for denial for each of the projects. After the hearing, the applicant withdrew the design and variance applications to look at all other alternatives for the sites. In May, the applicant submitted new design review applications that met all Brentwood Boulevard specific plan requirements with no variances being requested. Since no variances are part of the application, the approving body was the design review subcommittee rather than the Planning Commission. On August 22nd, the design review subcommittee considered the applications and could not come to a consensus. Since there was not a consensus, the applications were referred to the Planning Commission for your consideration tonight. The applications include design review 24-008 for a new 2,388 square foot 2-story home with 430 square foot garage and 430 square foot ADU located at 171 Caleb Place. And design review DR 24-009 for a new 1,997 square foot 2-story home with 445 square foot garage and ADU at 175 Caleb Place. The subject applications are similar in architecture as previously reviewed, including designs that utilize farmhouse architecture and varying architectural treatments in order to provide variation along the street frontage. As proposed, the new site plans meet all setback requirements for front, side, and rear yard setbacks and are no longer requesting any variances at this time. However, as proposed, based on the smaller lot size, the applicant is requesting one exception from the objective design standards, which is 2.2K. The intent of this standard is to provide articulation on all four sides of the new single-family homes. As proposed, the applicant has provided facade breaks on the front and rear elevations of the home and one of the sides. The applicant is requesting deviation from this standard on the other side. Applicants may seek exceptions or modifications to these standards by electing to process a development application through the discretionary review process. The Planning Commission has the discretion to approve this exception if it determines that the overall design of the homes is acceptable. Based on concerns discussed at the Design Review Subcommittee, if the Planning Commission does not support granting this exception, the Planning Commission may consider approving the project with the added condition that requires the applicant to revise the plans prior to submitting for building permits, as shown here. Overall, staff is supportive of the changes made to the homes and is recommending that the Planning Commission approve to the subject applications, including Resolution Number 24-038, approving design review application 24-008 for 171 Caleb Place, and Resolution 24-039, approving design review application 24009 for 175 Caleb Place. And with that, that concludes staff's report, and staff is available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any clarifying questions for staff? Commissioner Floyd?
Hi, Jennifer, thank you. I'm curious about the statement, and I don't have it pulled up, but it states that even though the lots are smaller than would normally be required to meet the zoning requirements for density, we do need to consider these to be buildable lots. And then therefore we have to allow the building. And can you tell me, is that one of these new state laws that says that, or is there something else?
No, that's not anything recent. They were legally created lots. And as a legally created residential lot, you are allowed to build one single family home. You can't do any less than one. And they do have the ability as a residentially zoned property to build a residential home on that lot. That's not something necessarily that's new with recent state legislation. That is something that has been in place for some time now.
Okay, thank you.
The applicant would like to speak first.
Yes, the applicant can come forward. Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. There we go. From our original meeting that we had back in April 2nd, we heard the neighbors' concerns. We heard the commission's concerns. And we went back to the drawing board. We kind of were tossing and turning about, what we were going to do, but we figured that the best case was to hear the community out, hear you guys out, and address the concerns. At that meeting, the concerns were, grading and drainage. We've already submitted grading and drainage up above. It's just waiting there for, them to review it. We took the property on the right-hand side, which is 175, Caleb Place. We reduced the square footage on that, by a significant portion. The variances, we're not seeking any variances at this time. We were able to make it work within the confines of all the setbacks, first floor and second floor. The garage, remember the neighbor on the right-hand side next to 175. The neighbor's concern was the garage sitting closest to her property. We went ahead and moved the garage to the other side, to the left-hand side. Basically, pretty much all the concerns. There was a concern about a fence that was there, that was put in by the previous owner. We already know that fencing doesn't meet any survey that's out there, so we're going to have to knock down that fence and re-put it, reinstall it to where the survey says it needs to be installed. Other than that, pretty much all concerns have been met from the last time. I know there was a lot of mention about parking and traffic. The last meeting that we were here, I had mentioned that I had gone out there and done my homework very carefully. I sat out there several days, lunch, breakfast, dinner. I spent some time out there getting to know the actual neighborhood. There's a lot of traffic that comes from the old Highway 4, uh, coming in from Sand Creek, where people like to cut across. People like to cut across the street in order to get off the Sunset, in order to head back out towards Knightson, and the back skirts of Brentwood or Discovery Bay. Vice versa in the mornings, the traffic, people like to come in, cut through the traffic in that area so they can go from Sunset and end up on Highway 4. A lot of the traffic that we were listening to at the last original meeting with you guys was, parking, traffic. Parking is really, I've been there. There's a guy that's on Jane Lane who's fixing cars. He has a bunch of cars sitting outside. There's neighbors all, around that have, 5, 6, 7 cars in that area. I can't do anything about that. Neither can the owner. Neither can really much of anybody, as they move consistently from what I've seen. But as far as everything else is concerned, we've gone back to the drawing board. There was a concern on the last meeting about some windows that were what I call them picture windows that were overlooking supposedly the neighbor to the right-hand side on 175. I've purposely designed the properties to have the windows facing the street or facing the rear. The 2 windows in reference that were in the meeting the last time were picture windows, and they sit 8 to 9 feet up high, where somebody would actually have to get into a ladder and actually look down to actually view anything. Other than that, we feel that the project has met everybody's concerns, including the neighbors, and that's pretty much it. So we kept the same design that we did the last time, which from my understanding was okay with you guys. You guys were, happy with that, and we're seeking the 2 exceptions that Jennifer had mentioned, which, butt up to each new property, which really doesn't affect anybody, neighbors or anybody. Since they're 2 new buildings, they're going to go against each other. But that's pretty much it. So you guys have any questions?
So, thank you so much. Were there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Floyd?
I have no questions.
Mr. Brand?
As far as the exception that's being submitted here for today, what do you think it would take design-wise to sort of suffice that requirement? It sounds like you kind of, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you went back to the drawing board, made some considerable revisions as I'm hearing him, and I imagine whatever combination you brought forward ended up with this being a remainder, if you will, as far as inability to suffice. Can you explain a little bit more as to why that exception still remains?
Yeah, so we actually remained with the pop-outs. Actually, when I turned the plans back into Jennifer on May, we had these pop-outs that came out to where it actually meets the Brentwood design standards. But unfortunately, if I'm not mistaken, Jennifer had told me that I think they don't meet the property line setbacks. Sure, her suggestion was just remove it. We'll come to you guys and leave it at your discretion. Any course of removing those, any course of removing any recourse in adding to the design standard without those exceptions would kind of make the house look a little bit off, weird from my understanding on architectural purposes. So it's kind of why we left it like that at the end of the day. So, but is it possible? Yes, it's possible. We don't like the end result when it comes to the design. So that's why we left it like that.
Understood. And just to be clear, it sounds as though by pulling in, well, because if you had a portion of the building sticking out, it would exceed the limits of the property line. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, correct. When we originally submitted back in May, back over to Jennifer, we actually met the requirement that you're talking about, but
Yes.
unfortunately, we triggered what was, the property line variance at that point, if I'm not mistaken. Jennifer can input on that if she'd like. So she suggested just to, leave it, take out the pop outs, come back to you guys and you guys decide.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Spaulding.
No questions at this time. I want to hear from the members of the public before I ask some questions from.
Absolutely. Commissioner Johnson?
No questions at this time.
Okay, very good. We might call you back up.
You have any questions?
No, I don't. I'm going to just
Okay.
hear more.
Okay, sounds good.
But thank you so much.
You got it.
Okay.
At this time, we have no speakers here in person, so no cards received.
Okay, very good. Then at this time, we will.
1 second. On Zoom, we have to go to Zoom. So
Okay.
on Zoom, we have one hand raised, Danny Dorman.
Oh, yeah, we do. Okay.
Of course, I'm going to call in just because I could. But this is one where when I read the plans, it looks like they did do maximum effort in trying to meet our city's needs. If you recall, I even drew little pictograms showing how it could have been adjusted and why it should have been declined the first time. This time, it's radically different. The two areas of concern that I believe one wasn't brought up, and that had to do with overlooking into the neighbor's yard or overlooking into somebody else's property. That is here in Brentwood a way of life. I overlook. I'm in my room right now, and I can see into my neighbor's yard. Fortunately, neither one can look into each other's rooms on the second floor, but it is the way it is. The same thing with my son, who has a home off of Garin, and you can see next door. So I understand the privacy concern, but we wouldn't be setting a precedent by allowing this to go through. And the exception that's being asked, if I'm not mistaken, it's going over the property line to the city, not to a neighbor or anything like that. And it looks like we're talking inches. So unlike the last time that I really wasn't happy about, for lack of a better term, this time it seems like these folks are really trying to make an effort. They talked to the community. They did all the things that I think were asked of. So I hope what little weight I have carries, and best of luck. Thank you.
Next, we have Jana.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you. My biggest concern about this project, and I am very pleased with how the windows are placed looking into my property. However, we paid a lot of money to have a plan established. And that plan stated no single family resident should be under 4,000 square feet. So my question to the commissioners here, or the planning commissioners and everybody, is who approved two separate addresses for a piece of property that's under 8,000 square feet? I'm going to start right at the beginning because that should have never been approved. To me, this is a waste of public funds. Why do we do these plans, but yet allow this kind of stuff to happen? I don't understand that. To me, that's a waste of our money. So that's my number one concern. Two, there's no reason that he can't put a single story home at 175. Just absolutely no reason. There's no reason to have that big of a dwelling. That's like what, 30, it's over 3,000 square foot home that he's placing there. And to me, I just think that's going to cause more traffic. The parking is a huge issue there already. And we don't need more cars going around there. We have a large apartment complex. Most of the homes are already rentals around there. And the parking around there it's not safe to walk around that curve. I think Rod, when he went out to take a look at it, almost got hit twice. So traffic's a concern, and I really want to know why that was even approved for 2 dwellings. When we have a plan that says no single family home should be under 4,000 square feet. So that's all I have to say at this point in time. So thank you.
Thank you, Jana. At this time, we have no other hands raised.
Okay, thank you, Miss April. And at this time, we will close public comment and go into our discussion. So, that being said, I've start at this end this time. Mr. Johnson?
Okay. This one is for, Jennifer, excuse me. Can you explain for the public about this minimum lot size at 4,000 square feet?
Yeah, so the first thing to note is that this property was annexed into the city in 1993. This property was annexed as it stands today with the current lot size, and the current lot size was existing prior to the city's regulations and prior to the city's minimum lot size. So it was not the other way around. This lot was not created after the city set its standards. This lot was created prior to even being incorporated into the city in 1993 and predated the current PD that it's in or the specific plan that it's in. So it was a legally created lot that was annexed into the city as this current size.
So with the lot being below 4,000 square feet, is it legal for them to build a house on that?
It is legal for them to build one single family home, yes. And accessory dwelling units do not count in the density. So it's one single family home and then any accessory structures or accessory units as regulated by state law.
And the ADUs, they don't count?
Correct.
Can we not have the ADUs or deny the ADUs or?
No, the ADUs right now, although they are shown on the plans, they are not required to. The applicant, to be transparent, opted to show the ADUs on the plans, but the ADU size, the ADU design, the ADU setbacks, and the existence of the ADU altogether is not actually under the purview of the Planning Commission tonight. It's the actual single family home. The ADUs could have not been shown on these plans and then just come forward through the building permit process because of the current state law requires ADUs to be administratively approved through the building permit process without discretionary approval.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Spaulding?
Jennifer, since we've had the interim design, objective design standards, that's a mouthful, in place, have we granted similar exemptions or variances to what the applicant's asking tonight? And if so, when?
So they were adopted last year. They've been in place about a year now. Since then, the Planning Commission has reviewed one application, one single family application for Orchard Grove North. As part of that application, there were 3 exceptions requested as part of the interim design standards that were granted. For that application, it was regarding some standards for street-facing doors and glazing, some exterior wall plane glazing, as well as some enhancements that were required on stucco elevations, which is not applicable to this lot because they're proposing siding. But so there wasn't this exact exemption, but there's 3 separate exemptions that were requested and approved by the Planning Commission as part of that application.
Okay. So the caller, asked about parking and how can we allow these to go in because of parking. Is parking with all I hate using the state laws as a reason for anything, because especially around housing, but street parking access is something that we do not have purview over on a project. Is that correct?
Correct. As part of your purview, we look at on-site parking. Parking is required to have 2 garage parking spaces as well as 2 driveway spots in front of that. And so as far as our Brentwood Boulevard specific plan and the city's municipal code, it does meet all parking requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Floyd.
Thank you. So this is part of the Brentwood Boulevard specific plan. And yeah, I know that there's precedent on this commission of making exceptions. I don't always vote for those exceptions, and I don't feel bound by them. We make decisions on each application. It's just because we've done something wrong once doesn't mean we have to do it again. Okay, so I'll dispense with that. This is part of the Brentwood Boulevard specific plan, which we have been not taking good care of as a commission and as a city. And I think it's about time to say enough is enough and stop making exceptions and stop making things worse there instead of better. This is an area of the city that has gone neglected for a really long time. And it's our obligation to the people that are there, to the people that have attended the at least 2 separate planning meetings with public participation that have gone on. We need to start thinking about what we want Brentwood Boulevard to be, what we want it to look like, and how it's going to impact our community. And this is an example of, we're really cramming these large houses onto these small lots. And zoning aside, these are about as large a house as you could put there. And I think that it's not unreasonable to ask that they scale the houses a little bit to the lot, a little bit more, and go ahead and meet the objective design, which we do have and which we can enforce. We do have that ability. And I think that being Brentwood Boulevard specific plan, we should be strict. The fact is that not just these 2 houses, but every house on that street on both sides has by right the law to put in an ADU that we can't stop. So we have to think about what that neighborhood's going to look like if people start coming in there and they can overrun the parking regulations that we have are not set up to anticipate the conditions on the ground. So we may as well be as strict as we can about things here. And the ADUs that we see on these plans, they don't have to be there. We can just ignore them because this is not something that's in our purview. So if I don't look at that ADU, I see houses that could be reshaped or resized or built in a way that will make the houses compliant with our objective standards. And we have objective standards for a reason. I think we should stick with our objective standards. I think we should support our objective standards. And I think that that's reason enough. And if nobody else has anything, I'm ready to make a motion.
Commissioner Brand?
The interim objective design standards are there for a very prominent reason. And I think this is something that we discuss on a regular basis as one of the few remaining opportunities of maintaining Brentwood's somewhat left autonomy with respect to housing. We can't apply subjective standards, so we have to go with objective standards. City Council drafted this last year, June 27th, I believe, or at least voted on it then. The idea was to provide this sort of, I'll use the term bulwark, against the possibility of finagling different types of projects in order to suffice requirements outside of what the individual jurisdictions would prefer. And the only way to do that is by applying some type of objective standard versus subjective standard. Now, we have an instance here where we, grossly denied we voted to deny based off of the variance, which was not so much as related to the interim objective standards, but in a similar vein. Now, in this case, the applicant has returned with a substantially revised plan that still retains the application for a singular exception. Now, in this case, I don't design buildings for a living, but what I can say is that it seems as though that the exception being submitted here could, with a decent amount of energy, could be revised and then resubmitted with, I don't know from what I'm hearing from my fellow commissioners, but resubmitted with some level of acceptance due to the fact that it would then meet all those requirements. I don't know if at that point, I'm looking at you, Jennifer, as far as a approval process, is that an example of something in which it would have to return to this or a similar body, or would it be, could a community development director would be able to?
So since it is an objective standard, staff has provided within the staff report suggested language if you wish to move forward with the project and find that it does meet all of the Brentwood Boulevard specific plans requirements. If you wish to move forward with that and everything except for the exception, since it is an objective standard, staff has included a draft condition that requires the applicant to revise the plans and move forward, and they can go ahead through the building permit process. Since it is objective, it would be something that is not going to be up to really much discretion of the community development director. It's either it passes or it doesn't. That's how our standards were created. So the condition that staff has drafted would allow you to go ahead with approving the project before you tonight to move through the building permit stage process. And as part of the building permits, staff and the community development director would ensure that they do meet that last objective design standard.
So in a sense that through the planning department, they would be able to then do that back and forth again to be able to suffice that requirement without retaining that exception that we're describing here today.
That is correct. If you were to approve it with that, it would not come back to the Planning Commission for further approval. It would either meet it or it doesn't. So they would go through straight to the building permit process, revise their plans accordingly.
Understood. I did want to get more feedback from our design review committee, who's here today. I did watch the meeting, and I was very curious as far as, maybe I'll let our chair go, and you can come back to me.
The only thing that I would say about the Brentwood plan, and I did hear the caller. I beat you to it, April. We have plans in place for a reason. And if we're not comfortable with the plans, and I understand that plans change, we need to take that back to the collective and make those changes. Taking away and adding to plans that are there for a reason is something that I have learned my lesson is not for us to do. Because we're eliminating a very active group of people who participated in the design of this Brentwood Boulevard plan. So I'm careful about that. taking away and adding to something that is there for a reason is probably not a good way of moving forward with anything. And that is just my take. But I'd be interested, based on what my commissioner, Commissioner Brandt just said, is trying to figure out if this is something that we can resolve. I'd like to resolve it and keep within the Brentwood Boulevard planning. That's just my take. So,
And I would like to clarify, if I may, the application as it currently stands meets all specifications, all design standards, everything within the Brentwood Boulevard specific plan. There is nothing within the Brentwood specific plan that this application does not adhere to. What they are requesting is an exception from our interim design standards, which is completely separate from the Brentwood Boulevard specific plan. And it's something that is a little higher level than the specific plan and is applicable to all residential properties.
right.
So when those design standards went into place, it wasn't project or site specific. But I do want to clarify that this project does meet all Brentwood Boulevard specific plan regulations and development standards.
And that except for one, which I'm looking at on packet page 15, building facades and materials
From the interim design standards, correct?
from the interim design standards. That is except for one,
Correct.
correct? Okay, so that along with I had it written down, exceeding the density is what we're
No, based on, although it exceeds the density, it is
Yeah.
a legal lot and therefore can be, is an allowed use and allowed by right to be.
it is by
on the
right.
property. Yes.
Yes, I understood that. Okay. Now, I'm going to just weigh in on what the other commissioners have to say, and we'll go from there. I am also curious to know what came out of the design review. So why don't we start there, if that's all right? Commissioner Johnson, you were on the design review along with Commissioner Floyd. So what is it exactly why are we here? That's the question, because we sent it to the design review, and I thought that would be resolved. So what happened?
So I think we're here because myself and Commissioner Floor could not come to an agreement. Based on my understanding, these two homes are legally built on legal lots,
Yep.
meeting all design requirements for the Brentwood specific plan, density requirements for the lot size, and they're asking for an exception based on the interfacing architectural,
Architecture.
could not get that word out,
Okay.
design on the interfacing sides of the house. So it's not even facing the public. So based on that, I thought it should be approved. I also think that, just as a general comment, life is not black and white. And unfortunately, we can't always fit everything into perfect
No.
deals. So I think that requiring something like this to go through an extra standard to meet that one architectural design on the interfacing side of the lot can have unintentional consequences when we're looking at other things down the road. And so I try to look at things consistently. And I think that might cause some exceptions down the road. It would be nice to say everything is either yes or no. I have 2 kids. Sometimes it's just not that easy to make it black or white.
Yeah.
So I would just say I voted against the first time the applicant came here. I voted against it. I thought they were asking a lot. They went back I don't know how much money they spent, but they went back, spent a lot of money to redesign it to fit everything that we wanted, that we said we wanted. And because of the interior architectural design might overlap the property line by a few inches, I thought they made a considerable effort, and I thought it should be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Floyd?
Thank you, Chair Roberts. I fundamentally disagree with the idea that objective designs are not black and white, as Commissioner Johnson is suggesting. I wouldn't use that term, but I would say that they are objective designs, and they're objective for a reason. We should not be making exceptions, and let me explain why. If we make an exception to our objective designs, which are the only bulwark we have in court against many projects, if we start going around saying, oh, the objective designs, we make exceptions, we don't enforce them. We don't always follow them. They cease being objective. They become subjective again. And this is the exact thing that we are trying. I'll finish and then you can speak. This is the exact thing that we are trying to avoid by having objective designs. This is what the state has imposed on us. If we do not maintain our objective designs, we have nothing. We will have nothing to protect our city. And I don't think that's what anybody wants here. Going back to precedent, I don't think that we should be making exceptions, and I don't think that we can sit here and make exceptions and then say we have to follow that precedent, because what that does is it makes us a de facto legislative body, and we are anything but. We are not legislators here. We do not make the rules. We're here to make sure the rules are followed. That is our job. And especially when it comes to objective design. When it comes to Brentwood Boulevard's specific plan, we need to make sure that everybody understands. We want to stop seeing these plans coming back that rely on exceptions that don't follow the spirit and the letter of the Brentwood Boulevard specific plan. Staff will keep bringing them back if we keep passing them, and it's not their fault, it's ours. It is this commission's fault if we continue to allow the Brentwood Boulevard area to deteriorate, because we will not enforce what we were sent here to do. City Council has made it very clear how they feel about Brentwood Boulevard and the specific plan. We are an extension of the City Council, and I always carry the Gov code that defines what a planning commission is. We exist. We are a creature of the state. We are defined as an extension of the City Council. We are not required to be here. The City Council can close down this commission, take on our jobs, and do it themselves. That we are here just to keep the City Council from being overwhelmed with all these applications. And it is our job to respect what the City Council wants. And they've been very clear, and we've been having decisions pulled since I've been here. I've been seeing decisions get pulled and pulled and pulled, and that's not right. We're not doing our job the correct way if City Council has to come back and redo the job for us. That's not what we're here to do. So for all of those reasons, I think that we must, it is our moral obligation, our official obligation to enforce every aspect of the objective design standard. Furthermore, I object to the characterization of this project being consistent with zoning in Brentwood Boulevard specific plan. It is not. It is grandfathered in so that it can be inconsistent, but it is definitely inconsistent. As the caller pointed out, these lots are smaller. And so you can't really say, I mean, we can argue terminology here, but I don't think you can say it's consistent with the zoning. It's excessive in the zoning. So we don't get to consider that, but I don't appreciate that language showing up in the resolutions that are proposed. And I think that when we're talking about inches, that it would just be a few inches, they could have come here with houses that were shorter by a few inches on each side, and there would have been nothing. But we have to meet those objective design standards. You have to understand the political environment we live in right now, the legal environment. This city is being sued several times a year, and we have to make sure that we do things the right way. And this is nothing against the applicant. I feel bad for the applicant having to come back because they were allowed and encouraged to submit a plan that doesn't meet the objective standard, but this is the objective standard. This is what this city has. This is our only defense. If we start tearing it down, if we start punching holes in it, no matter how small, it ceases to be objective. It ceases to be something we can go to court and say, see, we made these rules and we're sticking to them. Because if we don't do that, then others can come and say, oh, they don't stick to those. They're not real objective standards, they're guidelines. And we're back to that. And so for all of those reasons, I declined to support this project in the Design Review Committee, and I'm ready to make a motion anytime.
Commissioner Spaulding.
So Jennifer, this meets the Brentwood Boulevard specific plan.
Yes, it does.
So it's not, shouldn't be considered by us as what we're looking at is the variance or the exception is for the objective design standards.
Yes.
And on July 2nd, when we approved the Orchard Grove North, that had 3 exceptions to the objective design standard.
Yes.
And that vote was 4-0 and Commissioner Johnson was absent.
I do not have, I have the city council final resolution in which the city council voted 5-0 to approve it, but unfortunately I do not have the planning commission vote. But the city council.
It was 4-0 on the planning commission as well. And so did the city council change any of the 3 objective design standards that we approved on July 2nd?
No, they did not. The city council approved all 3 exceptions, 5-0.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
I'll just say one thing because I don't want to just, if no one on this council or dais has ever voted for an exception, then fine. If you never want to vote for an exception again, fine. But I believe if we went back and go and look, somebody's probably voted for an exception. And so if you want to say, hey, we're going to be rigid and we can't do anything outside of that, fine. But I think somebody's going to want to vote for an exception at some time. Otherwise, if it was black and white, you don't need a planning commission. You don't need people from diverse backgrounds to look at these things because Jennifer could go, hey, this is it. Boom, you're done. So we don't need us. What do you need us for? We just put it into a computer, let it spit it out, and we're good. So that's all I have to say.
So I'd like to ask how many wrongs make a right? And again, we're in a completely different environment than we were a year ago, a little over a year ago when the objective designs were put in place. And yeah, so there may have been some slip-ups along the way, but this is something that we can't keep doing. And it's not a matter of us expressing our judgment or our consideration. This is about the state coming in and making us do stuff. I don't see any reason that we need to approve this at this time. We're not required to, we don't have to. And we need to start understanding with more clarity what we need to do here to keep this city safe and from litigation. And I think it's really important that we do that. I don't really see any reason why this plan should have come to us without being 100% compliant. As everybody keeps saying, it's just a matter of a few inches. I'm not an architect, but I think it's easier to make a house smaller than bigger as far as structural constraints. So I see no reason. We're not required to pass it. I don't see any reason that we have to pass it. And again, I'm ready to make a motion.
Commissioner Brand.
Brought up the phrase before, the shades of gray, because it's the environment that we deal in here, and that's the reason why there's 5 of us to make an effective decision here. And we are compelled to look at foundational documents such as the general plan, Brentwood Boulevard specific plan, the interim design objective standards, and so forth, as profound guideposts. Let's call them ARMCOs in a sense, that keep us from going off of the rails. Now, I fundamentally believe that these documents have profoundly shaped the way that this city exists today and will continue to exist as far as its the vision that I think many people have contributed to, including the public. The public was fundamentally responsible for contributions to the objective design of interim objective design standards, so that the public was able to contribute in a way that was meaningful and could help shape the way that future homes would be built in this city with very concrete objective standards that weren't really much for interpretation. It either meets it or it doesn't. Now, in this case, we're seeing, and in this case, and Vice Chair Sparling, I believe I voted against Orchard Grove North, but I can't find the meeting. So
I have it up.
What? Oh,
I have it up. I'm looking at the notes.
Was it 4-0?
Yep, it's 4-0.
Okay, thank you.
So now you may have objected to the tentative map. I think I remember that.
Oh,
but
yeah.
the actually approving the project, which would have included the design of the project, was 4-0, unless I'm reading the notes wrong. I'm not looking at the meeting. I'm looking at the notes that you can find on past agendas.
Yeah.
Because that was my question to Jennifer this afternoon was, since the interim, because it's not the Brentwood Boulevard specific plan that
Correct.
we're talking about. It's the exception is to the objective design standards.
Right.
Correct.
And so that's the exception that we're dealing with. I respect the Brentwood plan, I respect the downtown plan and the general plan. This is the objective design standard. So I wanted to see, to be fair, had this body approved it and had city council approved it? I knew the answer to the question of the city council already. It was
Correct.
So 9-0 chose to make an exception for 3, because Commissioner Johnson was not here that evening.
Correct.
So us and city council decided to allow 3 exceptions to the interim design standards. I don't disagree with the philosophy of Commissioner Floor, but this body, not last year, 3 months ago, approved 3 exceptions to it. So if this body wants to stick to the letter of everything, then we can certainly do that. But when do you start, and how is it fair to past projects that may have been either denied, right? Or we're going to have unintended consequences could go either way, right? So planning is not black and white, planning is gray.
Correct.
So in my opinion, so I felt it was important I wasn't playing gotcha. I wasn't called on first to say, hey, this was, this was it. But we approved it, a much larger project with more variances, or more exceptions, I guess I should say. And so, yes, it's 2 houses. Yes, could they be smaller? Yes, they could be. And they could fit the lot. I asked Jennifer if, could they slash 2.5 feet from each lot, right, to make it, to comply. They'd have to fundamentally change the homes. That certainly is an option, but let's not pretend that we didn't just approve 3 exceptions July 2nd and the city council approved those, because that wouldn't be fair to this applicant.
So you're making my point for me. We've basically, by making those exceptions before, we've legislated that we have to be making those exceptions again to be fair to any applicant that comes forward. Is that what you're saying?
I think we want to leave those on the tables for for projects, because it gives us greater flexibility, because planning is not black or white.
So can you foresee any situation where we would be able to be more strict without being unfair to that applicant? Or does fairness trump the law? That's my question.
So yes, this applicant has been through 4 meetings, 1 planning commission meeting, 1 sub-design meeting, which didn't happen for a reason I don't understand, and then the actual second design subcommittee review, and now this meeting. They've made adjustments, and that's how the process should work. We didn't like the first project. I think everyone likes this. We just wish it was 5 feet smaller, right? We'd be done if this was 5 feet smaller on this, or it would have been agreed upon in the second design standard. I think we want to be consistent with the approach, right? And we were, because we went from a project that no one liked to a project that is close, right? And are we willing to live with one variance, one exception? And, you know, I haven't heard a reason to vote for it. I haven't heard a reason to vote against it at this point. It's really, you know, unfortunately, this applicant is stuck in a philosophical discussion about what the planning commission wants to be tomorrow, because if whatever we decide tonight is probably going to decide future, at least for this group of planning commissioners, if there's other housing projects that come before us before, you know, December 31st, how we're going to deal with this issue.
When you say that nobody objects to this, I object to it. Community objects to it. There are people that object to it. I cannot bring forward objections that we're not legally allowed to consider. I can bring forward objections that we are. So your characterization of no one only includes 2 or 3 people. I don't know that I don't know everybody's mind on the dais, but I know that I have other objections that I am able to, I would be able to vote, even though I had those objections, if the plan was consistent with the objective design standards. The fact is, we are not the be-all and the end-all. We need to listen to the residents. We need to listen to the city council. We need to listen to everybody, not just us. We're not, you know, we're not living in a vacuum. So I don't really buy that. But nonetheless, I think we've had as much discussion as we need. I don't feel anybody moving anywhere. I'm ready to make a motion anytime.
I have something that I'd like to, would you come back up to, if it's all right with the commissioners, may I ask the applicant to come back up?
Absolutely.
Commissioner Spaulding?
I didn't think you were really asking permission. You were going to do it.
So I guess some people are troubled with these inches. And I'm wondering, what is the issue with you addressing that? Could you share with me so that I can actually understand better why it is a problem or could be a problem in revisiting this build out?
Yes, the way it's right now, it looks good. We feel that if we made an adjustment of inches, we would have to actually compensate some sort of a roof lip, which in turn would make the property look just not architecturally good. That's,
For inches?
yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not an architect, so I don't,
Yeah,
I don't.
it's, no,
I'm a layperson that sees inches, and it seems like it's doable, but based on what you've just said, it's doable, but it would cause a problem elsewhere in the.
That is correct. We would have not only architectural problems, but also when we get to the building structural end, we will have, we move it inches in, we will have a problem with water seeping into the garage and so on and so forth. So we could flash it, but you know, it's not going to look good. So.
Any questions for this for the applicant while he's up here?
I have no question.
None for me.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I
problem.
had that. Okay. Any more discussion on this topic?
I'd like to make a motion.
I've already said that I was ready to make a motion.
All right. Well, let's hear the motion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to deny based on the failure to meet the objective design standard. And we could probably do some language. Do we need to do some?
Since staff has recommended approval and we have resolutions for approval, we would recommend that if your motion is seconded and that is the will of the commission tonight, that we bring the item back with resolutions for denial. We would want to hear from the commission and so that we can make findings for denial. Those would be the findings that are set forth in the current resolution set up for approval. If you want to direct your attention to those, but we would want to hear from the commission about which findings cannot be made and why. If that's the will of the commission tonight, we would bring back resolutions for denial.
So we still need to do a vote to determine the will of the commission.
That's correct. So if you want to make a motion, I just want to make sure that you are aware that would be the procedure this evening.
Okay, so what language would I use to make the denial? I just generally I just want to make a motion to deny, and then we would, if that motion passes, we would discuss, and then the actual resolution to deny would come back next meeting.
I mean, I think it should be apparent from the discussion, the reasons that you would be proposing to deny. So I would say make the motion, get a second, and then have a discussion before voting on the motion.
All right. So, and there's 2 identical resolutions. Do I need to make separate motions for each one, and then we can discuss all of it together?
If you want to treat them the same collectively, and you're going to have the same reasons for denying each resolution, I would accept a motion that addressed both design review applications collectively.
All right, thank you. So with all that in mind, I'd like to make a motion to deny both both Resolution 24038 and Resolution 24039 for the reason that they are not consistent with the objective design review standards, objective design standards.
Second.
Okay.
Chair Roberts, can I get a roll call vote on that?
What happened, April?
I think we can just do a standard vote. So just call for the ayes and then you can call for the noes.
Sure. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All in not favor and nays?
Nay.
No.
So we have 3 and 2. Motion passes. So at this time, are we going to look for language, or are we going to go into the next agenda item?
Well, I didn't hear any further discussion other than inconsistency with the objective design standards. So,
Okay.
Jennifer, do you have all you need?
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll bring back resolutions for denial at another meeting.
Okay, good. We're going to move on into our public hearing for Brentwood Municipal Code to update Section 17800-009. A2, to increase the notification radius for public hearing items from 300 feet to 1,000. And Ms. Hagan will take it from here.
Thank you, Chair and members of the commission. We do not have a presentation on the screen for you tonight, but tonight we're here to consider an amendment to the municipal code to increase the notification radius for public hearings from 300 feet to 1,000. In May of this year, Vice Chair Sparling requested future agenda item to discuss the possible changes, which was then brought back before the commission in June. At that time, the commission voted unanimously to move forward, requesting that the city council direct staff to update the code. This request was then presented to the City Council in July of this year, and at that time, the City Council considered the Planning Commission's request and did direct staff to move forward with this change. Based on that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt the attached resolution number 24-040, recommending that the City Council adopt an ordinance to amend section 17.800.009A2 of the Brentwood Municipal Code to increase the notification radius for public hearings from 300 feet to 1,000 feet. And that concludes staff's report.
Thank you. Any discussion for staff? Mr. Spaulding.
What do we have, public comment? Or questions for staff, sorry.
Yeah. No. Commissioner Johnson?
I don't have any at this time.
Commissioner Floyd?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Brand?
Is the radius of still consistent, just like as the crow flies, I assume?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. All right, very good. And at this time, I'll open it up for public comment.
At this time, we have no speaker cards in person. We do have one hand raised in Zoom, Danny Dorman.
There it is. I hit the wrong button. All right. Well, this is going to be tricky because whoever our attorney is there today, please bear in mind that they do coincide, my comments. One, yes, I think a 1,000-foot radius is great. No, I think what Rod said was totally wrong. Yes, I think we do need that type of exposure so that people who are missing out on crucial information that affects their neighborhood, that 1,000 feet would accommodate. Rod, on the other hand, seems to pick and choose when a number of feet is appropriate and when it is not. I think this 1,000-foot is appropriate. I think the 3 exceptions of the last meeting that were far more impactful to the project, that was voted 4-0. I don't know what we'll have today for the 1,000-foot radius. Hopefully it'll be 5-0. But going to the one that was 4-0, Rod, you voted yes on the 3 exceptions. So, you know, it seems like there's a little flip and flop going on there. Going back to the 1,000 feet, if you look at some of the other projects that we've had in the past, particularly the Orchard project, where it was facing the farms, the fact that they did exactly the absolute minimum to get the information out, 300 feet is ridiculous. Almost as ridiculous as turning down this project for 5 feet. I don't know if there are any agendas in either of these cases, whether it's this 1,000-foot one or the previous one. I think there are agendas in both cases, because if you look at 1,000 feet, well, what happens if they go to 990 feet? Are we going to sit there and get mad and go back and say you did not appropriately let us know because we didn't break out a tape measure and made sure that it was 1,000 feet? Or are we going to do like Rod did this last time and kill the thing for 5 feet that's inside that nobody will see? So in closing, I think someone needs to recuse the exact same reasons that was mentioned. Thank you.
Next, we have Marisol Valles.
Oh my God, man, Danny, I love you, but that was off the chart. I get shut down at the last fucking. Oh, sorry. Oh God, sorry. I was sorry. I was shut down at the last meeting for being off topic, and now Danny, that was so off topic. Anyways, that was so off topic, and he doesn't get shut down, but I get shut down. 1,000 feet is absolutely reasonable. Absolutely reasonable. If someone has to recruit themselves, then it should be there too. So thank you, and sorry.
At this time, we have no other hands raised.
Okay, thank you. So we can go ahead and close public comment. And
I make
have
a motion to
discussion.
close.
Yes,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so let's have a discussion. Commissioner
Can
Floyd.
I know this is Vice Chair Sparling's thing. I just want to make a quick comment. I haven't made any comment yet on this item. I thought the caller was confused about that. I have made no comment yet on this item, and I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. And I'll make more comments later.
Commissioner Brand.
Can I defer to Vice Chair Sparling? It's his item.
Well, yeah,
Thank you, Chair.
yes, by all means.
So if you remember when I brought this up, the genesis was because of an item I had to recuse myself from. I'm not supposed to talk about that item, but it was, I lived 900 and I can't remember exactly, 70 feet from, and from the corner of the project, but not anywhere near the actual project that became before us. And so that got me thinking of like, well, if the state has said, or the FPPC has said that it's impactful, right? That that a planning commission or city council person has to recuse themselves for 1,000 feet. Why wouldn't, that means there's some sort of impact to the public within that 1,000-foot radius. And to me, it just made common sense. And I think I made the comment last time that sometimes, as much as I disagree with state law in a number of areas that we discuss, I think sometimes we can make common sense adjustments to our municipal code, and this is an opportunity to do so. During my time on the Planning Commission, I think there's probably been 5 or 6 different times where someone has said, come in here, or during COVID, right? Or Zoom, where they said, I only found out about this because my neighbor who lived right next to the project told me about it, and I live just outside the radius. And 300 feet is not very far, right? I can literally hit a sand wedge further than that. So the 1,000-foot radius, I know it's not 300 feet in one direction, it's 300 feet in all directions. So I think this just makes common sense to make this adjustment. City Council agreed, and which is why it's back in front of us. So I just ask for your support in moving this back to City Council for final adjustment to the municipal code. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
I totally concur with the 1,000 feet, but I would like to see Vice Chair Sparling hit a sand wedge more than 300 feet.
Oh, I'd like to see that too. Well, that's okay. You don't have to respond. So this public notification,
Chair,
I think.
Chair, my prior comment wasn't about the actual item. I just was clarifying that I hadn't made one yet. I'd still like to make one.
Oh, by all means, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I went out of turn because this was Vice Chair Sparling's item, and I wanted to hear from him first, but I did just want to clarify something. But as far as this item, I'm totally in support of it. I think that anything that increases the ability of the public to be aware of things and to be involved in what happens in their city is a good thing. And I do appreciate this item, and I am totally in support of it. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Brand?
Pretty much ditto to what everyone said here today. I think more residents that have the opportunity to participate in this arena is great, particularly by, increasing the radius of notification. It's to sort of actively solicit the input of the public is, I think, a great example of how we do all this. And, as much as we can to widen that within reason is a, understandably positive revision to the municipal code, in my opinion. So, thank you.
Well, this public notification, this particular public notification that we're speaking of provides information about government activity so that the Brentwood citizens may make well-informed decisions. In the context of planning, generally set minimal requirements for local public notices in support of open meeting laws while allowing towns like Brentwood to add greater detail or additional notification methods. So I too approve of it. If zoning decisions are made in compliance with adopted ordinances, why bother issuing notices at all? Transparency is one concern. It's a concern for all of us up here, certainly, but due process is another. Citizens of Brentwood must be informed when the government is going to take action that affects them. And this is spot on, Commissioner Spaulding. However, the nature of most variances requests typically impacts the immediate neighbors of the affected property. An assessed owner 3 or 4 homes away or on another block is less likely to have an interest in the request for a reduced setback or increased lot coverage, especially if the structure cannot be viewed from their property. And it could be reasonably assumed that the interest and impact diminishes as the distance from the affected property increases, as typically most petitioners are adjacent assessed owners. So all that said, playing the devil's advocate, I'm hopeful that widening the notification will bring about more residents in that particular line of sight or property to chime in on how they may or may not feel about a particular application that's being set up in their neighborhood. That's the hope. But the other side of it is I look at, and there are people that will call in, and I can always count on Mr. Dorman to either come in or chime in, but we really are hopeful that this will bring about more participation. I'm hopeful that it'll bring about more participation as these projects, which are looming and are coming in, for our residents to chime in and actually not just be notified, but participate. So that's my story, and Commissioner Spaulding,
Unless there's any more comments, I'll make a motion.
by all means.
I make a motion to adopt Resolution 24-040, recommending that the City Council adopt an ordinance approving a zoning text amendment to the Brentwood Municipal Code, RZ 24-007, which would increase the notification radius for public hearing items from 300 feet to 1,000 feet.
I second.
Oh, well, I'll let you second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. And now we will move on to our informational reports. Transplant.
We had a pretty substantial update on the State Route 239 progress. There's two options on the table right now, one that goes further east towards Tracy, the other one kind of wiggles its way south. Project is obviously significantly underfunded and probably maybe has 30 years before it could see some type of completion. So, don't hold your breath on that as being a upcoming alternative route to Vasco. So, let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Design review.
There was no meeting.
And there was no reading for land use Monday. Okay.
The first meeting of municipal code was more informational than anything. We were able to define some of the titles of codes that we're likely going to look into, particularly I think it's 1, 2, 10, and 17, that we're looking at strategies as far as how we can make meaningful revisions that can bring it to current, as well as sustainably revise on a particular cadence that makes sense for both upholding the BMC as well as being mindful of costs. So should see another meeting at the beginning of next year.
Okay, thank you. Any requests for future agenda items? Commissioner Spaulding?
Thank you. I don't know, and I was talking to our planning manager before the meeting, I'm not sure if these will be future agenda items, but they're definitely information requests and could turn into future agenda item requests. The first one is around the municipal code update, and I know it's changed, but the direction from the council has changed what I'm about to state, but there was, in July 28th of 2020, there was an agreement for a comprehensive zoning update that there's a contract that was out to do that, to do an update. I know the council since then has kind of, I guess the best way to put it is kind of chopped it into pieces. I think maybe in an upcoming council meeting, there might be an item coming back. And the reason why I looked into this was probably too much information, but for planning manager, but the genesis of this is I had a number of meetings since our last meeting with commercial developers on the other side of the bay in terms of life science building projects, and had a conversation with them about what their experience was with cities that they were dealing with and what they liked, what they didn't like. And through that conversation, wanted to understand what when the last time our municipal code and zoning updates were done. And I think certainly on this dais, we've had some conversations recently about certain zonings. And what I'm talking about is I'm talking about true commercial development. I'm talking about innovation center type projects, not a single one building project, right? Wanting to make sure that the zoning update, that whatever the council is doing now, that we are addressing and updating the commercial zoning for consistency. And because what developers I spoke to, and again, these are not residential developers, we would love to have these developers in Brentwood at the Innovation Center. They're building 2 million square feet of lab space, right? That would be wonderful. I would definitely have to recuse myself from those projects. But what they're looking for is consistency, and what what it says is what can go there, right? And so mixed experiences depending upon city, right? Depending upon the last time the municipal code was updated in those cities, right? So, just trying to learn more about what other cities are doing. So I don't know if I know that this plan is no longer the plan, that it's chopped up. I'd love to get some more information on kind of what the schedule would be for that municipal plan. I know the planning commission, whoever's on the planning commission the next term, some of this could come back to the planning commission. We're part of the process, as I understand it. So just wanted to get a better understanding of what the process is going to be and how the planning commission is going to play a role in it. Like I said, I don't know if it's a future agenda request more than an email response to this from an information standpoint, but Eric, I'll let you chime in.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Sparling. So that's actually what I would recommend, and I know that I owe the commission a summary of the general plan update. That's something that the chair had asked about at the last meeting. So I'd like to just simply add your request to that, and I would send an email out to the full commission with kind of summaries on both of those items. If there are follow-up questions or if there's a desire to have a more formal discussion about them, we could certainly bring them back, but that would be my hope, is that would satisfy the question.
Okay.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Commissioner Johnson?
I don't have anything.
You don't?
Not additional things. I do.
Commissioner Spaulding, if you have one more, let's hear it.
So again, this falls into the same category. I'm not sure if it's a future agenda request item, but it's something that I've seen other cities do or read on the news that they've done this. And this comes to projects for housing and affordable housing, but for specific, being able to carve out specific affordable housing qualifications for certain employment categories, such as teachers, police, fire, medical, right? I believe it was the city of Redwood City that approved, it's either Redwood City or Foster City, I can't remember, who approved an apartment complex with, whatever their percentage was for affordable housing. But then they approved a certain percentage of those had to be for teachers that taught in the school system. And to me, I don't know how they did that. I don't know how that would work. I don't know if our municipal code would allow for that, but I would be curious to get some feedback on whether that could be something that we could look at. And then obviously, if we had momentum here as a future agenda item request, maybe if it were to pass it on to City Council for their review.
Yeah, thank you for that. And would you be comfortable with the same approach as to the other two items, at least to start?
I would be, yes.
Okay, great. I'll add it to the list.
I have no item.
Commissioner Brand?
Nothing for me.
Okay, nothing from me either. So at that point, at this point in time, I think we can look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and the next regular Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for October 1, 2024, 7 p.m. and will be held here in Council Chambers at 150 City Parkway. All right, very good. Thank you. Travel safely.
As a friendly reminder, please make sure you throw your garbage away tonight.
Did you do that on the video? Did you do that?
I need to throw my trash away.
me.